Hey you guys, I just finished watching a YouTube video called The Compost Story by Kiss the Ground, and it was really inspirational. Rosario Dawson made me cry, and so it kind of motivated me to come out and share a little bit about composting to hopefully help you be successful and maybe just be motivated. So definitely check in the links below for a link to that video because it's a really good one. But when it comes to composting, a lot of people give up on it because it's too much effort, too much work, or it's they set themselves up for failure. So it's essentially simple, and there's a lot of great stuff in the video. But what I wanted to kind of do was to show very simple compost bin designs, and then talk a little bit about kind of streamlining your system to make it more efficient. So there are a lot of options out there when it comes to composting because there are so many different ways to do it, and there are a lot that are let's say less effective, less efficient. Really, the reality of compost is that you want a bulk space material container so you can hold a large volume, and the reason for that is for it to have a really stable environment. If we're talking about microorganisms, it needs to be consistent moisture, consistent temperature. Those kind of things make a huge difference. And so I guess the short version is anything that is off the ground is pretty much a waste of time and energy. So like the rolling ones, the spinning ones, all that, that's just all gimmicks. And the main reason it's gimmicky is because of the lack of volume. The size makes it like 10 times more difficult to get that really good decomposition than if you had a larger volume. So this is what I would recommend. This is a larger bin, and essentially it can be made out of anything, but what I find a lot of on the sides of the road are fence panel pieces. So just do simple adjustments with 2x4. So this exact same model that I'm using at home, there's another one right there that I was able to get all of this in one truckload and make a few adjustments. So that one's going to a school garden in a couple weekends. So yeah, it's real quick to screw it together. When it comes to the material to fill it with, that's a huge part of being successful with composting. So you have to have a large, as far as ratios go, greens to browns, it's a lot more, maybe like 80-20 ratio of leaves and high carbon material to your food scraps. Otherwise it's just going to ferment, it's going to smell bad and bring in more insect, roach life that you don't really want. So this is the base, bags of leaves, wood chips, something that's very high carbon, and you'd be amazed at how easy it is to find this stuff, this kind of stuff on the side of the road. And what you want to look for is something that is mechanically broken down, because that'll help speed up the process. On this bag, you can kind of see that we can see the moisture through, that some of the leaves are turning darker brown, and that's a good sign that it's ready to be used in the compost bin. The other really cool thing that I want to pause and just share and show, and the dogs are barking, the high carbon material can be banked and stored, and almost needs to be. And so finding bags that can last a long time, these non-decomposable bags, you can store them off to the side. Let's say you had a more compact system. Storing just a few bags of carbon in any state will help you when the time comes to add it to your pile, and while it's sitting, it decomposes itself into a really nice material. So this bag is pretty recent, and this bag is also pretty recent, but this bag I went and got from my garden, and this bag is a year old about, so it's from the winter before last, not this last winter. And I want you to notice the volume reduction. So this was likely 100% full of leaves, and just because this bag didn't break down, it kind of created this biodome, microclimate perfect environment for all of that decomposition to take place. And so this material is basically, ready to accept food scraps, I would say. The carbon in the leaves has shifted from being hydrophobic, which means repelling water, it beads up on the surface and runs right off, to becoming hydrophilic, which means there's moisture inside of these leaves. And that's the process that is pretty difficult to, that shift change. That's a big threshold to create as far as decomposition and bacterial life happening and things like that. So grab the bags of leaves, find a spot to store them, whether it's in a compost bin or not, and then you can use them as needed, because they only gain value over time. And that's what that video, I mean, like, super beautiful video, was really showing, is that there's value in all of these materials. All of this gains value over time. So find a place to store them and then use them as you need them. All right, so here are the Compost Bin Essentials. A garden fork for burying your food scraps, and some sort of cover to prevent rain from running through your compost. This is actually a really huge one that a lot of people forget, and it slows down their decomposition process. But essentially, we're trying to bake a cake and let it rise. You know, we don't need it getting pounded back down or leached out. The moisture that is in there should be sufficient. And when you add leaves, if they're on the bone dry side, I would run the hose, you know, probably the whole time, mixing it up and trying to make sure that moisture is spread throughout, but that once the moisture is spread throughout, you don't want more moisture flowing down and through. That can have a negative impact on the rate of decomposition. So having a little bit of a roof. Another thing that I might not have mentioned, that this compost bin is in the shade. We're underneath a big pecan tree, and so in the heat of the summer, it's not going to get any direct sunlight. That also helps decomposition. So you'll see it's just basically bags of leaves, and all of it just from this year, and consistent moisture. Here's my kitchen compost bin. I recently splurged and bought a nice stainless steel one, but before it was plastic buckets with a lid, or even just plastic grocery bags. So there's no right system, but absolutely you might want to splurge and be fancy as well. But here's the amazing system. You open up a hole, and you dump your food in, and you cover it up. And that's it. And just think of how simple and quick and easy and nice that is, you know, to take that back in and give it a quick rinse. But what comes out of this bin is just beautiful stuff. You know, the chickens create beautiful compost, but absolutely leaf mold in the backyard is beautiful compost. And I can show you, maybe we'll jump, start to see it. I know I've buried food in the middle right here. You can actually see a plume of heat coming out. I'm going to pick you up to get you close. So here is a spot where food has recently been buried. Oh, you can see there it is. Okay, so there's that decomposition happening. There's steam coming up, so it's on the hot side, definitely over 100. But that orange peel there is probably less than a week old, or maybe just about a week. So it's fast when there's a lot of air and consistent moisture. This will be breaking down quickly. Which brings me to having to add more carbons to your compost bin. If you want to make really good compost, you have to continuously add the browns in addition to continuously adding the greens. So I've already refilled this bin. First time I filled it all the way up to this edge here, mounted up, and within 2 weeks it was halfway down. And then I fill it up again, and then halfway down. So as this gets lower and lower, I'll continue to add browns to it. So yeah, that's about it. I definitely recommend checking out the video and link down below. It's a really beautiful one, share worthy if you're on social media, and hopefully you gain some insight into composting. And maybe if you've tried it and you've failed, this can give you a push to say, okay, I'm going to try again, and just value the browns a little more. Get a little bit more of a base of some high carbon material, and then you'll be successful. All right, you guys, I'll catch you next time. Peace.